Alright gang, here is our last part on our revolutions unit. If it's the last part of the notes, then a test must be around the corner, so make sure you guys get these filled out and look back over them and summarize your notes. Alright, so here we go. Latin American revolutions. Latin America generally encompasses Central America, which is made up primarily of Mexico, and South America. Alright, the colonial system. A policy by which a nation maintains or extends control over foreign lands who are dependent on their mother country. And we've talked about this quite a bit during mercantilism, so you should be familiar with how colonies were used. Colonial governments mirrored the home governments. Catholicism has very strong influence on the development of the colonies, and it is still a major religion in Latin America today. A major element of the economy was the mining of precious metals, specifically silver and gold, which were then exported back to the mother country or other colonial properties of the European country. Conquistadors were given governmental authority and becoming known as viceroys or colonial officers, and you can see them at the top. And viceroys, were generally at the top of the class system since they were the guys in charge. Major cities were established as outposts of colonial authority, and you might want to pause here and label these on your map. You will have to know where these cities are located, so please take a minute to do that now. And what do these cities have in common, location-wise? Alright, with the class system, with the rigid class structure, remember rigid means strict, not flexible. You had the viceroys and the colonial officers at the top. Below them you had the Creoles, a person of European or mixed Spanish or French and black or native, someone who is of descent born in the West Indies or Spanish America. Then you had the mestizos, a person of mixed racial ancestry, especially European and Native American. And then you had African slaves, or you could also have the Indian slaves there as well. And here is a chart that they use to kind of determine who is who, and sometimes that could be kind of complicated, especially when you have different races mixing together. Sometimes it could be kind of confusing, and some people were unfairly persecuted or stratified within their class system because of how they looked based on the skin tone. And all this kind of sets the stage for a revolutionary period throughout Latin America, where the people of these colonies said enough is enough and started rising up against their European controllers. The first is Mexico, and Mexico was led by an individual by the name of Father Miguel Hidalgo. His goal was to make Indians and mestizos self-reliant. He believed Spanish mercantilism equaled misery for the natives because they were being exploited, taken advantage of. He was excommunicated by the Catholic Church. And in 1811, he is executed by firing squad and then beheaded. And he is known as the father of the nation. So he's kind of like your Thomas Jefferson, if you will, maybe a George Washington type figure in Mexican history. Quick side note here, legend has it that Hidalgo's head and 3 other revolutionaries were placed on the 4 corners of the building as a warning to others not to rise up, which really, I guess you could say, did not work. Haiti. Haiti was led by Toussaint Louverture. He was a former slave who led Haitian rebellion against the French. He was self-educated, became an excellent military leader. In 1801, he declares himself the leader of Haiti. and establishes a constitution. He was betrayed by some of his own men. He is then arrested and sent to France, and that's where he died in prison in 1802. In 1802, France reinstates slavery. Louverture was also able to defeat the armies of 3 foreign powers, which is pretty impressive: Spain, France, and Great Britain. And eventually, Haiti would gain its independence, although it would take a little bit longer. And there's Haiti right there. Here's a closer up shot of it right off the eastern coast of, or eastern edge of Cuba. And you can see Florida up there at the top. Simón Bolívar is our next individual. He was a native resident who led revolutionary efforts pretty much throughout Latin America. He liberated the northern areas of Latin America. He was known as El Libertador, meaning liberator. Colombia, Panama, Venezuela, Ecuador, and parts of Peru were all part of his independence campaign. Bolivar's goal: a federation like the U.S., with independent republics ruled by a government that recognized and protected individual rights. So again, the United States at this time was a country, and they had inspired, obviously, the French Revolution, and some of their ideas had spread to Latin America. And here is the areas that we're talking about. All right, and again, Simón Bolívar, national hero to quite a few countries in Latin America. So all of these things led to independence. French, Spanish, and Portuguese colonies gained independence, and selected countries that gained independence during the 1800s were Mexico, Haiti, Colombia, Venezuela, and Brazil. And Brazil was a Portugal property, or a colony of Portugal, if you will. Okay, so here is some quick cause and effect of what led to these wars in Latin America. The colonial system, the unfairness of the way people were treated, especially the Creoles, Mestizos, the Enlightenment across the Atlantic Ocean, hitting, obviously, the United States as well, or the American colonies, and then the Latin American colonies. The French Revolution. Spain was kind of not quite as strong as it had been, and then the effects, obviously, whenever you have violent revolution, you're going to have people that die, civil wars, and revolutions can be very, very messy, to say the least. And here comes America. This is one of the few times that we'll actually specifically talk about America this year. After the American Revolution, the United States wished to prevent foreign interference in America. The Monroe Doctrine, named after James Monroe, one of our presidents, was issued in 1823, alerting European powers that the American continents, both North and South, should not be considered for any future colonization. Basically, the United States wanted those colonies basically for themselves. They weren't really trying to protect Latin America. They just wanted it for themselves. Impact of the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine was issued by President James Monroe in 1823. Latin American nations were acknowledged to be independent. Wink, wink. The United States would regard as a threat to its own peace and safety any attempt by European powers to impose their system on any independent state in the Western Hemisphere. So basically, it kept Europe out of America, who was a new country growing, kind of kept them out of their business. And the United States, in return, would also stay out of European affairs. Okay, gang, that's it. That is all the notes. This is a pretty thick unit. Lots of stuff, lots of people. Please make sure you are going back over your notes in the next few days for the test coming up. Have any questions? Let me know in class.